This is the Work Experience Kid podcast. I'm Ian Duguid, and we're exploring different jobs and careers, and I hope you'll find it beneficial if you've been thinking about moving into a particular industry or job. And in this episode, we're joined by breakfast radio host and broadcaster Ed Cowlishaw. I'll ask him a bit about his journey so far. We'll learn about what he's doing now and where he might be heading. And in subsequent episodes, we'll wind up with our guest setting me a challenge where I develop some skills and give their job a test run to see if it's for me. Obviously, if I want to do the job, but also if I have any future. And because the Venn diagram of radio and podcasting is almost a full overlapping circle, Ed and I came up with the challenge in episode 0.5, the challenge being that I would conduct an interview to see if podcasting, radio broadcasting, and just broadcasting in general is right for me. And we're hearing the results now. It's meta, I know, but we're building the plane in midair. Ed, thanks for coming back.
Thanks for welcoming me back, mate. How's the prep been? How have you gone with the research? Have you listened to me at all?
Well, I was going to ask you to quickly recap of what you told, the skills that I needed to talk about. Well, you've just mentioned research. Well, I can't say I've done a whole lot of research, to be honest. So let's move on.
All right. So prior preparation prevents poor performance. So you need to research your subject, right? Know who the audience is. Know what style of interview it could be. It could be a sensitive, could be accountability, could be an informative interview, and enjoy the conversation pathway. I think we're going to do that. There's no doubt about it. But hopefully you've done your prep, mate. Hopefully you've done your research, and we can have a good yarn here.
And I think the main thing, the sticking point for me was around the questions, what to ask and that sort of thing. So I've gone away and thought about a couple of questions.
Oh, that's nice. That's preparation. Good job.
Just a couple. I can't say much for the research, but I've thought of a couple of questions at least. Okay. At the end of this episode, maybe you can tell me how I went and, you know, maybe if podcasting or broadcasting is something for me. So if you don't mind, should we just get into it?
Yeah, let's go, mate. Let's go. Fire away. Here we go.
Well, this is probably the point where I need an intro song, isn't it? Maybe an ad as well.
See, this is all part of the prep, you know. Do you need a sting or something along those lines there?
I'll cross that bridge later. I've got to figure out how to do that. Anyway.
It's called production. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, you got to learn to do that. Anyway, to start, maybe you could share a little bit about what you do as a breakfast host. I'm thinking like your general role, your day-to-day, what you did in your show this morning. I know you covered a bit of that in the earlier pod, but maybe you can just give us a recap.
Oh, the recap is that I'm up at 3:30 every day, do a little bit of prep before the show. Say it's a Wednesday show, for instance. I've done a fair bit of prep on the Monday and Tuesday into that. So if you're doing a radio show of any sorts, whether it's breakfast or drive or an evening show or a segmented show, generally you've done a lot of research beforehand. Generally you've got your interviews all teed up, whether they're pre-recorded or live, and you're ready to go. And you're working 2 to maybe 3 days in advance of the day. So, for instance, I've just finished off a show today. It is a Thursday, and I'm working already on Monday and Tuesday shows next week. So that's the process there. The immediate preparation of it before a show is checking your socials, checking your news feeds, and being ready to rock and roll. Make sure that you've done all your editing, whether you've got pre-records there. Make sure that you've checked your emails to see if there's any live ad reads that you have to read on the day as well. And then jump into it. When the 6 o'clock news finishes, you're live, you hit the button, you've got the program scheduled up, and you're ready to have a good yarn with your listeners and entertain them, hopefully, on their way to or from work.
So, like, you just turn the mic on. Do you know what you're saying?
Generally, yeah. Generally, I mean, good morning is a good start. You want to have a yarn. You want to bring people into the show and the conversation straight away. And also, I think, if you're a radio broadcaster, if you're a breakfast broadcaster, you got to give a little bit of yourself to the audience. And I think my audience know me pretty well. They know my interests. They know a little bit about my family, not like where we live and our, mobile numbers and all that sort of stuff. But they know about me. They know about what I'm about. They know I'm a father, I'm a husband. They know what car I drive. There's little bits, little quirks, which can make you relatable to the audience that you're with. So that's what I try to do, especially, and I also break it down to the hours of the day. So the 6 o'clock crew that listen in are different to the 7 o'clock crew that are listening in, that are different to the 8 o'clock crew. So my 6 o'clock crew are night shift workers that are finishing off for the morning. They might be nurses, doctors, miners here in Gippsland. Those that are starting the day, same professions, generally blue collars. Maybe someone going off to the airport. Those sort of people there that are getting up and about at 6 o'clock in the morning, maybe morning runners or going to the gym. That's the crowd there. At 7 o'clock, everyone's in the car. Most people are in the car heading off to work, travelling around our beautiful region of Gippsland. And then the 8 o'clock crew are the school run. That's what we're doing there. And you have certain key benchmarks within the show which can bring the audience in for a bit of a conversation. So there are different audience throughout your show. And we're a background medium, so know that someone's not always going to be listening all the time. So have a little bit of fun with that as well and enjoy the ride.
It sounds a bit like having a chat at the pub with your mates. Maybe that's the 6 to 7 hour, and then the 7 to 8 hour might be like having brunch with your mates. Obviously, there's different conversations that happen, but just looking at who's listening, and then maybe the 8 to 9 when people are dropping parents are dropping the kids off at school. Maybe it's a bit more parenting content.
Yeah, I've said this a few times with our chat thus far, is knowing your audience, knowing who's tuning in, and you've got to do your research on that. And generally, you do that by paying attention to your callers, understanding what your callers are calling about, knowing your talk topics, but also when you're in the community. And when you're having a yarn to people and catching up at local community events and stuff like that, ask questions. When are you going to work? When are you in the car? Those sort of things. So you can do like a little straw poll on who are you targeting when it comes to your program. So there's a fair bit of research that goes into the formatting of the program and getting the conversation started that way.
It's almost like you do all the research. The job is 80% research, 20% the radio show, in a way.
Completely, mate, because I'm only on air for 3 hours and bulk of that is music. So when I was with the ABC, I'd be on air for an hour and a bit, and that's all talk. So there's not much music there. Here it's a music-based show here at Triple M. When I was at SEN, for instance, and I was doing nights there at SEN, I was doing a 6-hour program. It's all talkback, but that was in the middle of the night. So from 11 o'clock through to 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm doing talkback overnight, and you've got a motley crew of listeners there having a little bit of fun there, but it's all talk. So how do you fill 6 to 7 hours of content? So it's just having your preparation right and having a bit of fun with it.
I do want to ask you a bit about the jobs that you just mentioned, but I do want to ask you how long you've been in radio for, because you're obviously got a whole lot of experience. You know exactly what you're doing. I feel like what you're saying about the research, talking to different people, being involved in the community, it's something that people starting out don't necessarily do. Is that right?
One thing I've noticed over the journey, and it's been radio. Yeah, it's 25 years nearly. So it's been an amazing journey. But the learnings over the way have been be local. Right? Be absolutely local with your audience because they're tuning to you. I'm on Triple M Gippsland. I don't give a stuff what's happening in Melbourne unless it's affecting them. If someone's interested in something that, something about Melbourne or something about Sydney and all that sort of stuff, you know what they can do? They can go and tune in to a Melbourne or a Sydney-based radio station or a podcast, as there's so many podcasts around. They go and tune into the topic that they are interested in. And here on Triple M Gippsland, we're all about Gippsland. What's happening in Gippsland, what's coming into Gippsland, what's going out of Gippsland, what stories are happening here, what issues. That's our base. So that's the program that I'm working with at the moment, and I'm loving every minute of it.
So good to hear. 25 years, that's a massive stint. Did you always want to get into radio?
Since I was 5, mate. Since I was 5. And I heard Rex Hunt calling the footy. It was 1988. And he was calling the footy with Shane Healy on 3AW. And Rex was going off. He was going bananas. And I was just glued to the radio. I was laughing. I had no idea what the hell he was talking about. I was only 5 years old. But I'm listening to the radio and I'm just having an absolute ball. And then Dad, my father, we had a cassette player. So back in the days, they're called cassette players. Those older listeners will understand this. And you put the cassette in there, press the play and the record button together, and then talk into the radio box. And then he'd press stop, and then he'd play it back. And for the first ever time, I heard my voice coming out of a radio. and I was hooked. I was there. I made my own little radio programs and tried to get music off the radio by play recording and timing it all right. It was great fun, and that set the journey on my radio career as a 5-year-old. I love everything about it. It's brilliant.
So you're reeled in by footy player turned fisherman Rex Hunt.
Turned broadcaster Rex Hunt. And I've told him this. He once rang me. He was on the way. I was at SEN at the time. I was doing the overnights, 4 o'clock in the morning. It was on going into a Saturday morning, and he was off to fish, and he rang in and he was going on a rant or what about something, I don't know. And I just stopped him halfway through and said, Rex, thanks for inspiring me to get behind the microphone. And he got a little bit of emotional, as he does, and he thanked me for it. But you never get to thank your heroes sometimes, or you never get to meet them. And that was one of the best moments of my life, unexpected. Got to hear his voice. He got to hear what I had to say about him and his inspiration. And I'm getting a little bit of emotional now, but it was a great moment at 4 o'clock in the morning on SEN. It was it was good stuff. And he's had an everlasting impression on my journey, no doubt about that. He got me hooked. Pardon the pun.
I think all puns intended, if we can put that on record.
Pun it up with Rexy. Yep.
So, just doing some quick maths, did you get into radio straight out of school? Like, have you always been in the industry, or did you move into it?
No, it was a bloody hullabaloo. It was a hullabaloo. I went to a private school in Melbourne, an elite private school. They've been through their own trials and tribulations. I'm an ex-St. Kevin's boy.
We'll judge you later.
But when it came to careers counselling, Mrs. Lau, hello, Mrs. Lau, if you're listening, she had no idea how to get me into radio. So Dad spent all this money, and Mum, on this private school tuition, gets to the career stuff, and they had no bloody idea how to get me into radio. And I came back, and she goes, I'll research into it. I'm going, all right, yeah, fair enough. Came back to the next meeting. So what's your backup plan? And I'm like, all right, you can go get stuff. So after school, I got into a course that I did not want to be in. That was Arts, Humanities and Social Sciences at La Trobe. It was a course that, there was no pracs in there. There was nothing radio about it. And I'm like, I'm just going to idle here. So I ended up dropping out after a term and a half and getting high distinctions in astronomy. And I've just gone, stuff this, I've got to find a way. And I launched myself. I was actually doing, again, me with overnights at a local service station in East Doncaster called the Quicks Food Stores. And I saw this little article in the Trading Post, that said 3SA Broadcasting School in St Kilda will help you get you where you want to be for your radio career. And I've gone, bang, done. I'm going to do this. So I gave him a call, Clark Sinclair. He was a well-known figure back in the 1950s and 60s. He was blind. He was vicious, absolutely vicious. He would call a spade a spade. He would rip you to shreds. If you were stuffing around, he'd let you know. But you learned how to run a radio station, and he acted like a station manager in this little sort of studio in the back of his place in St Kilda in Grosvenor Street, just down the road from Joe Camilleri of the Black Sorrows.
Did you just dox Joe Camilleri?
I sure did. So if you want Joe, he's good for a yarn as well, by the way. And it was full on. I had to pay him. It was private. And he said that he'd get me into a radio job. 4 years later, he didn't.
Oh.
And I stopped going. But what he had done, and this is the funny thing, I probably should have left after 2 years, but after 4 years, I did this for 4 years, and my voice as an 18-year-old to a 21-year-old, around about that time there, so 3 to 4 years, my voice developed out of sight, reading scripts over and over during the week, and then running the station like it was a station, making sure that announcers turned up, choosing the music, making sure the format's right, using cart machines and record players and CDs. This is back in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was incredible. It was the best thing that I got out of it, because all the hullabaloo that you have to deal with in the radio industry, he taught me. You have to do everything yourself. If you want something done, you've got to do it. You've got to be prepared. You've got to put a good show together. You're going to get air checks and be criticised. You're going to get callers that are going to blast you. You're going to get people that you work with that are prima donnas and think they're the bee's knees and they only last in the industry for 5 minutes anyway. You've got to deal with salespeople. You've got to know how to read the news. So he taught me everything and got me going. Unfortunately, he never delivered me a job, and that was pretty hard. That was hard work.
Okay. So do you need a qualification to become a radio host? Like, you went to this guy, he's obviously not, doesn't have an RTO number.
No, and that was the issue that I had. The radio space was changing pretty quickly, and the technology was changing. So he had trained me up in reel-to-reel and record players and CD players and how to use them, and these computer systems had all started to come into fruition. So I'm behind the 8 ball. So I know how to do stuff, but I don't know any of the tech stuff. So trying to get in, and I needed to find a way. So I actually took some time out, and I went up to Darwin back in 2006. I'd just broken up with my girlfriend. She'd gone overseas and left me for someone else, blah, blah, blah. But I was still persistent. I didn't want to give up on my radio dream, and I was doing other odd jobs, and I was sort of idling. And I went up to Darwin and worked with a mate in a warehouse for a little bit. And I just had a moment, and I was listening to radio stations up in Darwin at the time, and I've gone, geez, I could do a better job than that. And I said, no, stuff this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go back and get an education. I've got to find a way. And I found this course called a Diploma of Broadcasting. So I made my way back in 2006, applied for this course in late 2006 and said, right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to study. It only cost me about $1,000 and I'm going to be committed to it. It's a year course and I'm going to go, right, this will get me into a radio career, and away we went. And again, it did not get me into the career as yet. And I had to do some more study on it as well. And that was a postgraduate course at Swinburne in 2008. And this built a really good core group of passionate radio presenters and broadcasters and writers and producers. And we're still all in contact today, which is quite amazing. And it's a network. And this was the next stage of my radio journey, building a network to know, right, hey, mate, there might be something going on here, there. You might be able to plug a hole here from a radio job. And away we went. I knocked back a couple of jobs at the back end of 2008 because I fell in love with my now wife. And in 2008, and I followed her overseas, knocked back a couple of jobs, and we're overseas. And then a job came up in Darwin, and bang, we're off and running commercially at, dare I say it, in Darwin, Mix 104.9, Hot 100, and doing radio production, which I absolutely hated, but I was in the industry and I was away.
So it sounds like for anyone trying to get into the industry, you don't necessarily need a qualification, you just need the experience. And so for someone wanting to get in right now, maybe doing a podcast will get them some of, say, the editing experience, the announcing experience. You mentioned having your voice improving. Do you need a radio voice?
Sort of. You need to know how to talk, I think. Well, I mean, my voice has been trained. You don't need to train your voice.
You sound like a regular person.
Yeah, you got to be yourself. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be talking like this and love songs and dedications. You don't do that anymore. The 80s and 90s are over. You don't need to put a voice on. You need to be yourself. But if you sound like a howling cat, you're probably going to struggle.
Yeah.
You know, if you've got a personality, if you've got a story to tell, and you've got an audience to tell that story to, you're away. Podcasts are different to being a professional broadcaster. Professional broadcaster, you're going to get paid, right? Whether you're in the commercials or with the national broadcaster, you're going to get paid. Podcasting, there's no guaranteed. There is no guarantee that you are going to get paid, and you have to do everything yourself.
It might not be a bad start for someone trying to develop a folio, maybe even social media, showing that they can speak, showing they can develop some sort of content. Obviously, very different, especially from what you're saying at the top, to doing a local breakfast show. But maybe that has what your boss needs to see to go, okay, I can possibly work with this person and take their skills and move them on air and train them up in that area.
Why do you want to get in the industry? That's the thing I want to know. And that's the first thing I ask whenever I'm training someone up, Skip, is why are you in the industry? Are you there for fame? Are you there for glory? Are you there for the pay packet? Why do you want to get on air? Why do you want to be on radio? To say that you've done it, tick a box? There have been so many interesting characters that I've bumped into in the industry that have lasted 5 minutes. Some have lasted a lot longer as well. It can spit you up and chew you out. I'm a career man in radio. I wanted to do it since I was 5. A lot of people still don't know what they want to do and they're 50 years old. So know why you want to get into it. If you want to do it for the money, it doesn't pay well. So understand what you want to do. What do you want to get out of it? Do you want to be the next Rex Hunt, as I was talking about earlier, or something along those lines there? Or do you want to get paid? I mean, these are the things here that you've got to know what your purpose is. And if you're putting a podcast together, you've got to enjoy it. You've got to understand the purpose of what you're doing and who you're broadcasting to and why. And if you can find enjoyment out of that and enjoying that journey out of it, you're going to have a bloody good time doing it.
That's the most important thing, isn't it? People are looking to change careers and thinking that maybe radio is, or just general broadcasting is where they want to go. There's something calling them to that. So I think it'd be quite difficult to change careers to something if they didn't have the passion for it. But I can definitely see somebody who is starting out thinking that maybe it's an easy job, but you're definitely painting the picture that it isn't as easy as many people think it is.
Well, I don't know if it's as rewarding as some people might think it is. I mean, people think, as you was mentioning earlier, I'm on air for 20% of the time of my job.
For somebody starting out, it seems like learning how to do everything, and maybe you might be saying at the start, I want to be a radio announcer, but then you might fall in love with the research side of things, so then you fall into maybe a producer, or something like me where I started in the radio, wanted to get into radio, but I fell into becoming a writer. You find all these different areas, so just because radio and broadcasting is appealing to you in shiny lights, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's where you'll end up. Although moving into a solo show where you are doing everything will give you some very valuable skills to move across different departments, I'd imagine.
One great example, we went to university with this talent, Sonda Novak Booth. She is a superstar. She was just a breath of fresh air, and initially, during university, she wanted to be a presenter. And then she had this knack of, and I think this is her business pedigree behind the scenes as well. But she joined this course. She did this university course with us, and she went on to big things. She went up to Taree. Was it Taree?
Yeah, it was Taree.
And she, a country town, and she worked out that wasn't for her. And then she used her business acumen to get a gig at Hit in Melbourne. And this was behind the scenes in integration. Now, integration is promotions and things like that for a show. And she climbed the ladder. She climbed the ladder graciously. She was the ideas behind some great shows that featured on the Hit Network. It was incredible to see her journey. But she started as a presenter, and it didn't end up that way. And she went on another unbelievable career within the radio industry. So as you mentioned, Skip, there are different pathways that you can take. You're not necessarily a radio presenter or broadcaster.
It's almost like when the passion develops, the universe helps you weave into the right area.
Bloody oath.
You spoke about being with some kind of weird man for 4 years, how you went to Darwin, then moved back to Darwin, back to SEN. Tell us about your career progression.
Oh, geez. Okay. So as I alluded to before, that my first gig was a production workday announcer at Hot 100 in Darwin. That was my first commercial gig. I've been doing community radio for about 6 or 7 years, and obviously at Radio 3SA as well. But first paying gig was at Hot 100 in production, and I was useless. I applied for 2 jobs, right? One was in production and one was music director, and someone else got the music director role. And I was so bad at production. It was taking me 16 hours a day to do the job. It was just awful, having to deal with salespeople that wanted their commission and get an ad to air ASAP. I was so bad. I had no one helping me. It was really hard. It was really, really hard. And I'd moved overseas with my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and I left her overseas to take this job up. And I didn't know if that was going to be the end of the end with that relationship. I think I lost 15 kilos in a space of 3 months, not knowing if my relationship was breaking down. The job was not what I wanted it to be. And then all of a sudden, the guy that had taken the music director job, he left. And thank goodness for the content director at the time, Louise Poole. She saw that I was struggling in production, but she loved the way that I was on air. She loved the way I was around the building. And she's gone, you know what, let's put you into music and see how you go from there. And that changed everything. So being a music director, you got to, formulate the music for the radio station at Mix 104.9. After that, I ended up hosting my own sports show. I created it and ended up winning awards for that. This is all within the same station. So in a 3-year period, I was production, I was a music director, I was sports director and running my own show there, and then I became the journalist for the station as well in a 3-year period. So here's the options that you've got. This is one job in 3 years, right? Get your crack, and then you can do anything you want within the station, right? If you want to put your hand up for something and try it, do so. That's the exciting part. And cutting my teeth up there in Darwin was absolutely magic. I got to work with some great people up there. They've all gone on to bigger and better things, which is brilliant as well. And then we made the sojourn back home, and I started working with the national broadcaster after that, spending time with the ABC in the Riverland of South Australia, and worked in Bendigo and Ballarat with the ABC as well, worked in Melbourne, did overnights there as well with the ABC, all contract jobs, and just couldn't strike that full-time gig as such. Ended up being offered the opportunity to run the Bendigo station for a little bit as well, which was quite incredible. So all that work that I did at Radio 3SA came back to fruition, and running an ABC station for 3 months in Bendigo was unbelievable. And working with elite journalists and broadcasters there was just absolutely magnificent. But something landed with the Talkback show at 3BA in Ballarat. So I went back to the commercials there. And then I landed a job at SEN for a period of 3.5 years. Wasn't getting paid much, doing overnights, having a wonderful time. Loved my job, loved doing what I'm doing, but you don't get paid much. And I said, well, stuff that. I just had a family. We had 3 beautiful kids during that time while I was on air at SEN, and we took up a gig in Broome. And during COVID, we were up in Broome for that whole time working at the ABC on mornings up there. One of the best experiences of my life. Ended up coming home from the Kimberley, not because of homesickness, but because of cost of living, and landed a job here at Triple M Gippsland, and loving every minute of it. Great to be back home in Victoria.
Whole lot of moving around, different states. Is that common?
It's the adventure. It depends what you want, right? And I think when people get into the industry of radio, or media for that matter, if you're not prepared to move for your job, you're not going to last long. Some people find a location where they want to be there and spend the rest of their lives. As I said, if you know what you want to do and what you want to get out of it, radio can take you around the world. And if you have a supporting wife like I do, who's a teacher and has a transferable career as well, you can achieve and explore anything. It's pretty magical. I mean, that's one of the bonuses of working in the radio industry, is that you just can go anywhere. Same with podcasts.
That's very true. I think we can sort of get an idea of what you love about the industry, but is there anything in particular that you do love?
Talking to people. As you can tell, I love to have a waffle. I just love connecting with people. I love talkback radio. I think it's the best thing, knowing, putting a talk topic out there and just having a laugh, or having a cry, or hearing a story that's profound. It's the best thing. There's so many people out there that just want company. And if you can give them that and have a yarn with them and help them enjoy their day a little bit better, that is the best part about live radio. You can have talkback.
It's a perspective that you don't always hear from people, hearing what the community has to say about various things. Do you have a standout memory over your entire career?
There's a few. I mean, interviewing Prime Minister Gillard when she was up in the Territory, to doing a live broadcast on a pearl lugger ship off the coast of Broome, to getting death threats whilst doing an overnight show.
Oh, wow.
I think it was just someone that just wasn't happy with life. That moment on air changed my life. So dealing with death threats, right? Someone calling in and saying, I'm going to be waiting for you outside the Richmond studios of SEN and I'm going to kill you. That's what I got. This is at 4:00 in the morning. So I've still got 2 hours to go. The brekkie crew come in. They're doing their thing. I wave goodbye to them. And I take a deep breath, not knowing what I'm going to walk out onto. I had no support. I was by myself overnight. I had no one to talk to about this situation. The show must go on. And I walked out and no one was there. and I breathed. And I worked out that I wasn't doing the show for the people. I was being a prima donna. I was, and antagonizing people. And I just changed my whole philosophy and said, right, let's make the listeners the star of the show. So that's what I did. So Talk Back, it was about them. It wasn't about me. I stopped talking about me and I started talking about them and their love of sport. That was the common denominator. And we had people from all over the country ringing in after that. I changed my whole philosophy on it and I put all the focus on my listeners. And I've been doing that ever since.
Isn't it interesting how SEN, without doing any maths, seems to be about the midpoint of your career so far? It took you that long to realize that, and then from that incident, there's so many people who work in different industries who do it for 20 years or, however many years it was from your start to SEN, and then there's this one thing, they go, hang on a second, why didn't I know about this at the beginning? Why did I train my voice to become a radio announcer? We don't need to do that. Why have I been talking about myself this whole time when really the job is about speaking and connecting with local communities, whether it's a big one like a capital city or national audience or to a local breakfast show in Gippsland?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That night, it was more about, there was a light bulb moment, Skip, where I just went, yeah, it's not about me. Stop antagonizing your listeners and embrace them. Embrace their passion. Go along topics that they're going to enjoy. Go along topics where they can go down memory lane. Go on topics that, look, if it might be confrontational, understand their point of view. Be the mediator. Don't be the antagonist. Don't be a Kane Corns. Kane does what he does and he gets paid well for that. But it was a different, it's overnights. It's a different crowd to people in the daytime because, as I said, there's many people that are struggling to sleep or might be going through addiction or might be long-haul truck drivers or might be lonely or might be depressed, or it's a different crowd that are listening to you in the middle of the night. I was getting international phone calls after that. I had truck drivers over in the US of A calling through. I had people in the UK calling through, in Italy calling through. I had listeners listening into SEN overnights because I changed my whole show to make it about sport that was happening overnight, not just AFL-centric, because, well, that's what's happening overnight. That's the live sport. And it just changed the whole perspective on things. It was quite incredible and, yeah, it changed my life broadcasting-wise.
We've spoken about a highlight. We've spoken about things you do like. What's something that you don't like? And I'll start here by saying the media and the radio industry is going through massive change at the moment. Heaps of redundancies across the board. And, we really hope there are areas of contraction than expansion and so on. Usually there's more contraction than there are expansion. So because you are currently employed by an employer that is making a lot of people redundant, I'll save you from having to comment on that unless you want to. But is there anything that you don't like about the industry?
The word no. I hate the word no. So the lack of support. People saying no, oh no, we can't do that. It's too hard. Laziness and no, right? And I've mentioned to you throughout this chat that we've had is that you have to work hard, right? You got to grind. You got to work. No, we can't do that promotion because it's too hard. We don't have the numbers. And I'm like, what are we talking about here? If you want to be the best, you got to act the best. You got to do it. You got to think outside the square and you got to work harder. I would love to be broadcasting from Phillip Island or Inverloch or Malakuta or Bairnsdale or Lakes Entrance. These are wonderful locations in our region a lot more often. If there's an event happening, I want to be there. But I keep getting told no. And it pisses me off. And I think with the current state of where we are in the radio industry at the moment, we are in a sense of flux. Hearing the word no is it's really, really bloody frustrating. It is so frustrating. That's my biggest ick or whatever it is. No, the word no, it does my head in.
So with that in mind, redundancies and lives changing. If someone wants to become a radio announcer, do you think it's possible to get a job? Are there jobs popping up here and there?
Oh, look, they're there. They're there. You just got to know, you got to be qualified. You got to have runs on the board or prepared to work for nothing or limited money early on in the piece. You're not going to be the next breakfast host of Hit or Triple M. But if you want to be a presenter, if you're changing careers and you go, yeah, I want to be the breakfast presenter at Triple M Melbourne, good luck. You're going to have to work really hard, or turn up on one of these stinking reality TVs and be an absolute clown, and you might get a gig. Something along those lines there. I mean, that was the flavour of the early 2000s, Big Brother. All these people coming out of Big Brother and hosting local radio shows, and they thought they were bigger than Ben-Hur, and they had no idea, and they lasted 5 minutes. But they were taking jobs from people who were studying to be radio announcers.
You make a good point there, Ed. There's the reality TV stars, if you want to call them stars, came through and got an easier gig because the networks didn't have to promote them as much as they would have to promote someone who's worked their ass off to get to that point. So we don't need a qualification. We just need to get on reality TV, or we need to show people that we can do the job. We can be relatable. We can speak clearly. We can find some great content, maybe from something mundane, not necessarily learn everything and then try to get through with your rote learning into a career, because those people don't necessarily last. Is that what we can possibly boil it down to?
Yeah, I think so. I think if we break it down really simplistically, you've got to the end of this podcast and you're going, how do we get in? So here's how you do it. Be prepared to work for limited money. So get that going, right? Know why you're getting into the industry. There are many different platforms. You could be a broadcast journalist, a copywriter, a production. There's many different areas where you can learn your skills and enjoy a wonderful career in the radio industry as well. You can climb the ladder. You can travel. There's so many different things there. But to get in, do a little bit of study, network, know who you're talking to, and you might get a break. And also be prepared to maybe go regional or start at a lower position to work your way up. That's generally how you get it if you want to get a break in the door. If you've been fortunate enough to be a clown on one of these reality TV shows and you've got a little bit of flavour there and a great story to tell, because that's what producers want, the ones that are running these shows, if you are interesting and if you are entertaining, you may leapfrog a lot of people and end up on breakfast shows somewhere, somehow. But it's hard to do. And the one person that I think that has done it really well, there's probably two people actually. Abby Chatfield. She's got her own podcast, obviously, and everything like that, sort of fluttered around that. But Ryan Fitzgerald with Fitzy and Whipper. Fitzy was on Big Brother in 2004. He's a former footballer as well with the Swannies, did his knee a couple of times. But he's a personality. He's a likeable bloke, and he's passionate about radio, and he's worked really hard on that for the last 20-odd years and had an award-winning show with Fitzy and Whipper up in Sydney for a long, long time. That's probably the one standout that I've seen from there.
It's a good standout too, or two good standouts. From what you're saying, it sounds like I will never be able to be a breakfast radio host because I'm not talented or interesting.
No, there's nothing like that at all. I don't think that at all. I think there is definitely scope for you to be a broadcaster. You don't like 3:30 starts. That's what stuffs you up, Skip.
Yeah, I don't like that, no. This is the point where it's probably a good idea. In a regular episode, I would be asking you to give me a challenge. You already gave me a challenge in episode 0.5 where, well, we decided that this podcast episode would be the challenge, where if I could interview you for the entire podcast, at the end of it, you would say whether I was good enough, maybe it's something I could pursue, and as I said, could I have developed the experience and skills that maybe your boss would get me to cover you when you're on holidays? Gut feeling so far, what do you reckon?
I think you're going to be shocked here, but I actually think you'd be a great interviewer. I think this podcast has got legs, there's no doubt. I think you ask right questions. They were conversational questions. It does help that I like to waffle. And now I think that's, just quickly, this is the other thing as well. You're going to interview people in your life, and you're going to interview in the next couple of podcasts as well, people that might not be able to talk, people that might not talk, and you may not get out of the podcast what you want or the interview of what you want. So be prepared for that as well. That's just my other little tidbit. But, mate, you're a great interviewer. You've done your research. They're open-ended questions, which give you room to move. You did great follow-up questions as well, which were linked in. Yeah, I think you'd be fine. I think you'd be great. It just depends if you want to work hard, mate, and get up at 3:30 in the morning with me.
Oh, I won't be doing any of that. I guess now is a good time to actually tell me when the mic's off your boss's email address and maybe his home address as well.
Home address? What do you want his home address for?
Oh, I don't know any bikies, but maybe I can become friends with some.
That's called stalking, Skip. I'm not giving you his home address.
Oh, is he on the electoral roll? Maybe I can find him that way.
If you're listening, don't give out people's home addresses. That'll get you sacked.
You gave out Joe Camilleri's address a little earlier.
Down the road. He no longer lives there. He's out in Castlemaine now.
Oh, now you're telling us where he is now.
It's all right. Joe and I get on well. It's all good. It's all good.
Oh, Ed, thank you very much for your time and helping people understand a little bit more about being a radio host, a broadcaster, and hopefully giving those people who have been thinking about getting into the media industry maybe a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel that it is possible. And the good thing is, I think you don't need a university degree, even though you did go to university. You don't need a degree to get started. You could just develop some skills on your own, maybe find a mentor and there's a whole lot of luck, isn't there? Find the right person and be there at the right time.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And if anyone's listening and want a leg up or anything like that, feel free to get in contact with us at Triple M Gippsland, and more than happy to help you on your journey as well. It is a great career. It's a great adventure, and I hope you enjoy it wherever you go.
Well, I think we've definitely helped a lot of people, Ed, and thanks for the offer. I'm sure a lot of people will take that up. And look, I think a lot of people will be shy to even do that, but when people in media say contact them, definitely contact them, because while a lot of people say they want to be in the media industry, they actually don't do the first step and contacting the person that says, hey, please contact me. So if you are actually keen, just make that first step, because there's a chance you'll get an answer.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. Yeah, please make those contacts. And this is all about networking. So that's the first thing. It's the hardest thing. It's the most nerve-wracking thing, giving someone a call to say, hey, I'd love you to help us out and try and build a career in radio or broadcasting.
I think, Ed, to wrap up, what's next for you? Are you staying in radio, or are you thinking about moving on to a different career?
Look, I've always been one wherever the wind may blow me, but there is an issue nowadays. I have 3 young kids, 9, 7 and 5, and their life is a priority as well now. So it used to be just my wife and I and wherever we went, but now with the kids, it's all about schooling and education or what life experience they're going to get. And that's why Broome was so good for us a couple of years ago. But for me, mate, I think it depends on the industry, where it's going. Is it going to chew me up and finally spit me out? Is it going to maybe lead me down the track of starting my own business? I think it could take me in any which direction. And that, again, is the exciting part of the career journey that I'm on with radio broadcasting.
So worst case scenario, you find yourself without a job. You're moving straight into a small business, sticking to media, sticking to radio, and going from there.
If redundancy came my way, I'd take maybe a couple of weeks off, and then I'd be looking. But I'm always looking for opportunities that are going to better me and better my family, but also touching base with the network that I have. I know that I won't be out of work for long, but I don't know where. If something came my way where it was a redundancy, it'd be a little bit nerve-wracking, but knowing that, I've got the skills and a great network of people to support me behind the scenes as well, I think the career in media will continue on for many years to come.
Well, maybe we can get a small business owner on the pod to let us know how they started and how they run their ship every day. And if when the time comes for you to do your own thing, Ed, you can listen to that ep and hear some tips that'll help you make the jump yourself.
Bloody oath, bring it on.
Thanks for your time, Ed. And let's end the podcast there.